Hi guys, it's me Terry of the Yarnjoy podcast. Welcome back to another tutorial. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do the 3 different pieces that are needed for our Scrappy Granny throw. Okay, so for our throw, we need, like I said, 3 pieces. We'll need a small granny square, a larger granny square, and a granny rectangle. Okay, all these squares together, and I'm using this green. It's a Karen 1 pound, and it is the color grass green. Okay, and all of this yarn is number 4 weight yarn. If you want to use baby yarn and make a baby blanket or any other weight yarn, feel free to do so, but I ask that it works better if it is the same weight of yarn and fiber content throughout, and I'm using acrylic. Okay, so for my hook, I am using a 5.5 millimeter or an I hook. Okay, and now use whatever hook is suitable to the yarn that you're using. Okay, and you will need a darning needle. I like these bent end tipped needles, and a pair of scissors. Okay, and that's it. So let's get started. So for the first one, I'm going to make this small granny square. All it is a 3 round granny square. Okay, and this is how I'm making. You can make them different ways with different spacing in between, and this is how I'm doing it for this particular project. Okay, so I've got my little ball of yarn. I save my very small scraps of yarn. That one, I don't know if that one's big enough, but to do the inner rounds, because, you know, that uses the less amount. Okay, so I'm going to start with a slip knot. Okay, and I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, let me zoom you in just a little bit. There it is. Okay. Okay. Okay, so chain 4. Now I'm going to put my hook into the very first chain that I made and make a slip knot. And when I do that, I like to pinch that loop. See, that's the loop right there. See that? I like to pinch it between my thumb and my middle finger there to kind of hold that open, because I'm going to make a ring. So when I do my slip knot, pull it all the way through, not slip knot, slip stitch, I kind of have the place where I'm going to put my hook, it kind of holding that hole open. Okay, so I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That's going to count as our first double crochet, and I'm going to double crochet into that ring that I just made 2 times, and I am going to work over my beginning tail, just so that will decrease the amount of tail weaving I will have to do. So double crochet twice, so 1, back into the ring again, 2. Okay, and so for my granny squares, all the corner spaces are going to be chain 2s. Okay, so chain 2. Ooh, wait a minute. Okay, chain 2. Yeah, I see it. There's a hair. Let me get that out of the way. I always seem to crochet a bit of myself into all my projects. Okay, chain 2. 1, 2. Okay, and then now I'm going to double crochet 3 times, and that's going to make a shell. 1, 2, working over that tail, 3. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to chain 2, because I'm making another corner. Okay. Slide my pieces over there. Now I need to repeat that until I have 4 of these shells with 4 corners. So 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Still working in that center ring, and still working over my tail. Okay, oops. Okay, now I'm going to chain 2. I'm just made my 3rd corner. 3 more double crochets for my last shell. 1, 2, 3, okay, and I need one more corner, chain 2, okay, and see, I've pretty much hidden my tail by working around, and you can shift them around and you can see that your tail gets pretty much covered up. If you need to snip a little piece there that's sticking out, if it bothers you, you can do that. Just make sure you don't snip any other parts of your work. Okay, now I'm going to connect it to make my square or my first round complete, and I'm going to insert my hook in the top of the chain 3 that I made in the beginning, and I'm going to make a slip stitch, and that closes off my square, and I am done with my first round. Okay, so I am changing colors every round, but you don't have to. If you don't want to do that, come up with however you want to do it. Now this round does only have 3 rows, or 3 rounds, sorry. So you can make solid. You can just keep on going if you want to. But I'm going to be changing color each round because I have so many different colors to use. So okay, so I snipped my yarn. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to make a chain, but then I'm going to pull it all the way through to lock it down. Okay, so there's my first round. So I'm done with that one for right now. Now I'm going to go to my next color. Let's see, let's use this blue. Okay, so okay, I always like to start in a corner, so I'm going to start here in this corner space. I'm going to insert my hook, wrap my yarn around and pull it through, and I'm holding on to the back there, that tail I just started. Okay, and then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then I'm going to do 2 double crochets into that corner. Okay, it's my first shell. Now I'm going to chain 2 to make a corner, and now I'm going to do a 3 double crochet shell back into that same hole that I was working in. So 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's my corner. Okay, now for these granny squares, instead of doing a chain 2, I want to try to minimize the hole size of my granny square, and so on the sides that are between, not in the corners I'm going to do chain 2s all the time, but between the shells on the side I'm only going to chain 1. Okay, now I'm come to my next corner, so I've got to do my corner 2 shells that go in there. So a shell, which would be 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Okay, now chain 1 because I'm on the side. Now I'm going to do 2 shells, 1, 2, 3, which is 3 double crochets. Okay, and then chain 2 because I'm in a corner, and 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm on a side, so I chain 1, and then I'm going to go into this corner right there, which is our last corner. And see how I have this piece that where I cut off my first color? I'm just going to lay it across that corner, and I'm going to work, when I work into this corner, I'm going to work over that working yarn. So I'm going to do, not working yarn, sorry, I'm going to work over that tail. Okay, so 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, chain 2 because it's a corner, and 3 double crochets again back in there, 1, 2, 3. Okay, chain 1 because it's a side, and now I just need to close my round up by inserting my hook into the top of the first chain 3 that we made. Okay, so it's right in there, and then I'm doing a slip stitch, okay, to close it up. Okay, so now I'm done with that round, and I'm done with that color. So I'm going to snip off my yarn, and you want to leave yourself just a few inches. Not, I don't usually leave a real long tail. Just a few inches to allow yourself to weave them in good. Okay. And then I'm going to yarn over and then pull it through like I'm doing a chain, but then I pull it all the way through and pull it tight to secure it. Okay, so there's my second round. Okay, and I've got one more round to go, so I'm going to pick this yellow here. Okay, so I start into any corner, doesn't matter where. Okay, let's start in this one, I guess. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull my yarn through, a loop through. You don't want to pull it all the way through. Hang on to that until you got it secured. Chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to do the same thing. So that was my first double crochet. So now I'm going to make 2 more. 1, 2. Okay. And then I'm in a corner, so I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to do 3 double crochets to make that second shell. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we're going to do something a little bit different, because now we have more of a length on the sides going on now. So we're on a side, so I'm going to chain 1. Okay, but now we have this hole right here that we didn't, because last round we just did corner, 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 corner. See that? So this one we're starting now to have a side shell that we have to make. So we chain 1 because it was a side, and then now we're going to do our shell into this hole right there. So 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then chain 1, and now we're at a corner again. We chained 1 because we were still on the side, but now we're going into a corner. So we're going to do 3 double crochets for our first shell. 1, 2, 3. And we're in a corner, so now we're going to chain 2 and then another shell. 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. Okay, so now we're on the corner again. So now we're going to do it just like we did this side. So we're going to, we're on a side again. So now we're going to chain 1 and then shell into that hole right there. So that's 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, chain 1, and then now we're in a corner. So we're going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Chain 2, okay, and then 1, 2, 3. There's our second shell into that corner. Now we're on our side again, so we're going to chain 1, okay, and then let me just show you this one right quick. Now we have our tail here where we fastened off the last time, so I like to just lay it across that hole like that, and then when I do put my shell in there, I'm going to work into it. Work over that tail. Okay, so 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then chain 1, and now we're back into the corner. So now we're going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Chain 2, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm going to finish up this side. We're going to do the same thing as what we have been doing. Chain 1 and then 3 double crochets into that hole, and then chain 1, and then we're going to join. Okay, and so I'm going to finish this side, and I'll meet you back up when I join. Okay, so I'm about to join. I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3. Okay, and now I'm finished. Okay, so now I'm going to cut my tail there, and then act like I'm going to chain up 1, but then I pull it all the way through to lock it down, and I give it a little tug. Okay, so then there's just one more thing I need to do, but first what I wanted to do is go ahead and I'm going to weave in these tails right here to just clean that up, because I don't like to leave the tails until at the end of my project, because that's just way too many tails to have to weave in. So I'm going to go ahead and get my yarn needle, and I'm going to weave in these ends right quick. Okay, so I weaved in my ends, as you can see. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to the edging. I'm going to take my main color yarn that I'm going to use throughout the project to tie it together. Okay, I'm going to insert it into the corner, draw up a loop, and now I'm going to just chain one. Okay, and that chain one is just to attach it to the square. I'm not going to count that as a stitch. Okay, so now for this round I'm just going to do single crochets. Okay, so I'm going to go into that same corner. I'm going to do one single crochet. Okay, and I'm going to go in and go to make a second single crochet, and then one more single crochet. Okay, so I got three single crochets in the corner. Now I'm going to single crochet into each stitch and then into each chain all the way across until I get to the next corner, and in the corners I'll do 3 single crochets. Okay, and I am working over my tail end here. Okay, so this has got 3 stitches, so I'm going to do 3 single crochets, 1 in each stitch, until I get to that chain. So there's 1, 2, 3. Okay, and now I'm in the chain 1 space, so I'm going to do 1 single crochet. Still working over that tail. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3 for that shell. Okay, and then 1 in the chain 1 space, and then I have 1, 2, 3, and now I'm in the corner again. So in the corner I'm going to do 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's all I do, and so I do that all the way around, and that's going to give me a nice edging. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing that, 1 single crochet in each stitch and 1 single crochet into the chain 1 stitches around. Okay, and then when I get to, and then 3 single crochets in the corner. Okay, and I'll meet you up when I get to this last shell over here before I join. Okay. Okay, so now I've got 1 more shell to go, so I'm going to do 3 single crochets, which is 1 in the top of each of those double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And now I am ready to slip stitch into my first, not into the chain 1, in fact I don't think you can even see the chain 1 anymore, but it's in the first single crochet stitch that we made. And we do a slip stitch. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. I've got my border on my granny square, and so now I'm going to cut off, leaving just a couple of, 3-4 inches tail to weave in. So I'm going to loop that around my hook, pull it all the way through, and lock it down by tugging on it. Okay, and then all I have to do now is to weave in this tail, and then that will be complete. Okay, so that's how we do the small granny square. Okay, so I have here, see, I've got this one that's got 3 rounds. All I have to do now is this green, which I'm using green for my main color, the edging that goes all the way around it. Okay, and so that's how we do the small squares. Okay, now to do the large square, you do the same thing as what we were doing for these 3 round grannies. Okay, it's just that you keep going the same method, okay, where you are chaining 2 in the corners between the shells, and you're chaining 1 on the sides between the shells. Okay, and you keep going for this large square until you get 6 rounds. Okay, but it's exactly the same thing. Okay, and then when you're finished, you take your main color and you single crochet around the top of each stitch, and once in the chain 1s on the sides, and then in the corners we do 3 single crochets with no chains, and that will give our edging around our large squares. Okay, so that's how you're going to do the small squares and the large squares. Feel free, if you get lost, feel free to rewind the tape, or well, it's not a tape. You reverse or watch from the beginning and to go through the rounds again. And like I said, for the big one, you just keep going around 6 to have 6 rounds instead of 3. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to shift things around here a little bit to prepare to, I will now teach you there's many ways to do it, I'm sure, but I'm going to show you how I do the rectangles, the granny rectangles, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, so let's get on to making the rectangle. Okay. So you take your yarn, start with a slip knot. Okay, now we're going to chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now I'm going to do 2 double crochets in the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right in there. So 1, 2. Okay, so there's our first shell. Chain 1, skip 1 chain and do a shell, which is 3 double crochets, into the next one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, chain 1. Okay, and do the same thing. Skip 1 chain and do a shell on the next chain. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Okay, chain 1, skip 1 shell, not shell, skip 1 chain, and then do a shell in the very last chain, okay? 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets. Okay, so now we are at a corner. Okay, we're going to do the corner shells in that very last chain. So that's the first chain, that's the first shell we need. Now we're going to chain 2 because we're making a corner. Now we're going to do a shell back into that same chain. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 2 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Okay, now we need to make the next corner for our rectangle. So chain 2 and then do another shell back into that same chain. And I'm working over my tail. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we got our first side and our first end piece done, or first 2 sides done. Okay, so now we're back to the side again. So now we're going to just chain 1. And then, my ball is rolling around all over the place. Okay, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to skip a chain, because we're working on the back side of our original chains. We're going to skip a chain, but actually it's real easy to find it, because what you're doing is you're wanting to do a shell in the opposite of the one that's already there. So we're going to put it in that same chain that shell was in, okay? So chain, which is 3 double crochets. Keep working over your tail. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. Okay, now we find our next shell, which is that one right there, and so we're going to put a shell into that same chain that shell was in. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, chain 1. Okay, so now we need to finish up our last corner. Okay, so see, at the end of this one, we have 3. We end up having, we have 3 shells, right? 1, 2, and 3 into that end stitch. Okay, so we want to do that over here. We've got the first one, which is where we started, okay? And so we're going to do a shell, and we're going to do it in that opposite the opposite of that first first shell, okay? Hang on. Dog barking. Hang on. Okay, sorry about that. Teddy decided or thought he saw something in the backyard, so he had to go check it out. Okay, so we're putting a shell into the same chain, which is our starting chain, or starting chain that we started working into. That's the opposite of that first shell. Okay, so 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we need to make our last corner, so chain 2, okay? So now we just need to put a shell right in the very end, okay? That same hole that we were working into, so we put our last shell in there. So 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we chain 2 to make the complete our last corner. Okay, this actually was our third corner, so this is our last one. 1, 2, 3. We want to slip stitch into the third, the top of the chain 3 that we started with. Okay, or no, the top of our first double crochet. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's it. That's our first round. Okay, so we take our scissors and we're going to clip off our yarn because I'm changing color with each round. You don't have to, but I am. Okay, so chain 1 and then pull it through to lock it and kind of tug it to kind of lock it in place. Okay, so there's our first round. Okay, and now we're going to build on this using the just regular granny stitch. Okay, so let's see, what color do I want to make? I mean, not make, use next. Let's use this bright green that I've got. Okay, on to our next round. Let's see, I'm going to start, let's start in a corner, okay, of our rectangle. Going to loop, pull up a loop with our new yarn and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're going to do 2 double crochets into that same corner hole there, and that's going to be our first shell. And I'm working over my end, my tail. Okay, now I'm going to chain 2 for my corner and do another shell in that same corner hole there. 3. Okay. Okay, so now we are at, this is going to be a side. This is our short side of our rectangle. So we're going to chain 1. And then here we are at another corner again. So we're going to do just like we've been doing, 3 double crochets. And then chain 2, because this is a corner, and 3 double crochets. Okay, now we're on a side again, so chain 1. Okay, now we need to kind of spread out our piece here so we can see the chain 1s, because that's where our next shell is going to be. So chain, not chain, we're going to do a shell, so it's just 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're still on the side, so we're going to chain 1. We're going to find our next chain 1 hole or space. We're going to put a shell in there. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're still on the side, so chain 1. Find our next hole, and there it is right there. So we're going to do a shell in there. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then chain 1. And then now we're at a corner. So now we're going to do a shell. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to chain 2. And then we're going to do another shell in that same space. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we are on our short side of our rectangle. So we're going to chain 1. And then we're at another corner, and see, here's our tail that I cut off from the first row, so I'm going to lay it across there, and I'm going to work over it. I'm And we're going to put 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets for our corner. 1, 2, 3, and then chain 2, and then another shell, which is 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're on the side, so we're going to chain 1. Okay, see that? Now we've got one more side to go. So we already chained 1, so now we're going to do a shell into the next chain 1 space, which is right there. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, find the next one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, chain 1, find the next one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, chain 1, and now we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 that we started with. Okay, and then I'm going to cut my yarn because I'm changing colors. Chain 1 and then pull it through and then tug it to lock it down. Okay, and let's see what we've got here. Now it's kind of wrinkly. See how it kind of wrinkles? So you just kind of smooth it down. Okay, it'll lay down once you get the more rounds you get on it. It will start laying down good. Okay. Okay, so see, there's my second round. So now we're going to do the same thing pretty much now that you've got the, well, since you have the basic foundation round 1, okay, that's the only thing really that's different for the granny rectangle. So now you're going to keep going around, okay, just like you did your granny squares, and with chain 1s, you know, between the shells on the sides, even the short sides, and then chain 2 between the shells in the corner with 2 shells in each corner. Okay, so you're going to do it just like you're doing the granny squares. Okay, and you're going to keep doing that until you have 6 rounds of your rectangle. Okay, and then go ahead and weave in your ends. Okay, when you get finished doing that, and then let me show you a finished one that I just did. Okay, so here is my finished one, and see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 rounds. Okay, and then I took my main color and I did the same edging stitches or whatever that I did on the squares. So I did a single crochet. Well, I started in a corner and I do 3 single crochets, no chains, and then I do 3 for each shell. I have 3 single crochets because it's 1 on top of each double crochet, and then 1 single crochet in the chain 1 spaces, and I just do that all the way around, and so that gives me my edging. Okay, now let me zoom you out a little bit and I will show you kind of how these fit together, kind of give you an idea. Okay, oh, wrong way. Okay, so move that out of the way. Okay, so we have our granny rectangle with the edging of the main color, and I have 2 of the 3 round granny squares with the edging. Okay, and then I have a large square, which is a 6 round granny square with the edging. Okay, so the idea is that if you take your 6 round granny square, okay, you count the shells on the side. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. See that? Okay, and then your 3 round granny squares, you have 3 on each side, right? 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so one of these and one of these, if you count those those shells across, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's going to equal the 6 shells across one edge of the large square. So when we stitch them together, this is going to equal the one of the large squares. I mean, this one side, see that? How they're going to line up, okay? So, and then when you put these one square and two little squares together, this going this way is going to equal your rectangle piece, okay? Now, as you can see, when I put them together, you can kind of see that it's not exact, because you know how with your tension and stuff like that, it kind of gets stretched out or whatever. But once we put them together, they are going to be the same size, okay? So that's how the layout works. Now, if I put them side by side, even this way, can't zoom out far enough, but see, the length of my rectangle, let me pull this down, see the edge there? There you go. See, the length of the rectangle is going to equal one big square and then one little square. See that? Sorry, I can't get it all on the camera there. I need to figure out how to raise my camera up more, but anyway, so that's how that fits together. And then the end of the rectangle will equal two of the little squares, or one of the big squares. See that? Okay. So those are the three sizes that you need to make, okay? And so you have your small square, which is 3 rounds, a 6 round granny square, and then a 6 round granny rectangle. Okay. So let me show you my layout for what I did. Okay. This is the layout. Let me zoom you in. There you go. Okay. Whoop. Okay. So this, let me try to get it straight there for you. Okay. So that is the layout that I used for my red square. Let's see, the camera's tilting. Okay. See that? So if you want to take a screenshot of that, I will leave that there just a few seconds. So then you can take a screenshot of it, or however you want to do it. You can pause the video and sketch it out yourself, the layout. I did post a picture of this on my Facebook group page. So that way, if somebody wants to make it the same-ish size as what I am doing, or the same type layout, then here you go. But feel free to play with your layout once you get some of these pieces together, and you know, play with it and make it your own, in other words. Let's see, where is the pattern? Okay, so if you are going to make a bigger blanket, this is the layout. Let me, wrong direction, sorry. This is the layout that they used in the pattern from Yarnspirations that I used as an inspiration of my my blanket. Okay, and I will put a link below to the Yarnspirations pattern, which will include this chart, so then you can look at that one and download it, print it out if you want to make a larger blanket, and you know, play with the arrangement using this chart. Okay. Okay, so I think that is all for the tutorial. So everybody just start making your squares, okay? Now I will say that if you use this one, let me zoom up again and you can see at the bottom of my page there. In order to do this one, I already counted up how many small squares and how many large squares that I'm going to need. And I counted 24 small squares that are 3 rounds, 12 large squares that have 6 rounds, and 12 rectangles that have 6 rounds. Okay, so if you want to do this one, then I've already totaled up how many of these, of each size of the squares that you needed. So let's everybody get started with this Scrappy project. And like I said, there's no ending date for this. Just take your time, work on it as much as you want to do. We're just using up scraps and skein, extra skeins of yarn that we have, or open skeins, or if you want to use brand new skeins of yarn, feel free. Any type of colors you want to use, color scheme, as many colors or as few colors as you want. Okay, so that is it for today. I hope everybody has a great day, and I hope that somebody was able to benefit from this tutorial. And I can't wait to make all these granny squares. In fact, let me show you. I have already started a few because they're just so fun, and I just love sitting there and pulling out colors. That's the one I just did. But, pulling out colors and just having fun with it. So these I have to, of course, edge with the main color that I'm using. So anyway, let's get on to using our scraps, guys. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.